This is NHTV2, North Haven Government Television, a service of North Haven Community Television. The following program is brought to you through the support of the Town of North Haven.
I'd like to call the Tuesday, October 26, 2021 North Haven Fire Commission meeting to order. I'd like to ask everyone to please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. And in particular, you know, we talked certainly about the volunteers' deeds and accomplishments and dedication and loyalty and support for our residents of our town. But I'd like to also talk about the parents and the family and the support that they have provided this wonderful young man. In today's society, when you hear about young people going down the wrong path, it's always a joy to know that we have a person that's willing to give his time to the residents and to the business owners and visitors of our town. And it's a tribute to the parents. So I'd like to congratulate you on a job well done. Thank you so very much for what you've done. And rest assured that our senior leadership of our fire department is going to assure that your young man is going to be safe and he's going to be well trained by his senior leadership. So thank you, parents. We really appreciate it very much. What I'd like to do is ask Thomas Gallagher to please step forward to be sworn in. That'd be fine, Thomas. I'm going to look this way here toward the camera. So, Thomas, please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the state of Connecticut and the rules and regulations of the North Haven Fire Department as written and amended by the Board of Fire Commissioners, and that I will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties of volunteer firefighter of the North Haven Fire Department to the best of my abilities, so help me God? Congratulations. Welcome aboard. Thank you. Please accept the congratulations from our commissioners.
Congrats twice. Congratulations.
Congratulations. Good job. Now I know the parents here would like to stay for this long meeting here, but my expectation is you probably want to go home and have some dinner and celebrate a bit. So. Please feel free if you wish to leave. If you want to stay for the rest of the meeting, you're absolutely welcome to do so. So it's entirely up to you.
Thank you very much.
You're so very welcome. I'd like to call a 5-minute recess, please. Ready? Yeah. 5-minute recess. I'd like to reconvene the Tuesday, October 26th, 2021 North Haven Fire Commission meeting. And again, it's always a joy to swear in a new volunteer, and we look forward to Thomas serving our residents in our town for a good number of years. I'd like to ask for the approval of the minutes of the Board of Fire Commission meeting held on September 28, 2021. Do I hear a second? Second. Any question on the motion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? So moved. The Chief's report.
Good evening, all. Chief's report for this month. We'll start with alarms. Alarms in 2020, we are at 3,979 alarms. Alarms in 2021, we're at 3,903, a difference of 73 alarms. 5 years ago, we were at 3,417, difference of 486 alarms. Our last Fire Commission meeting was held on September 28th, so the below numbers are going to reflect a time period of September 28th through yesterday, 10/25. So since our last meeting, we've provided ALS intercept 13 different occasions. We've had 17 incident responses to the highway, 46 incidents in which just an ambulance was able to respond and we were able to withhold from sending any fire department resources. 55% of our calls overall were EMS related. So that accounts for about 390 incidents, 94 of which were overlapping, which is 24%. So that number really hasn't changed, that overlapping number. Regarding the current budget, year-to-date at this time last year, we were at 26.3. Year-to-date this year, we're at 27.2. Again, that brings us to the end of period 3. Since our last meeting, we've collected $6,800 in permit fees, bringing us to a total of just over $88,000 this fiscal year. And our EMS revenue is at just under $30,000. The Fire Marshal's Office, I sent out a report with your packet. 51 total inspections, 9 different code violations were found, 12 others were corrected, and about 49 plan reviews and permits. Only incidents of significance since our last meeting, again, it hasn't really been that long. We're working with a basement right now, an illegal basement in a commercial structure that we found several code issues with that they continue to try to occupy and lease. And we're in the middle of right now trying to make sure that property is not being used for any retail function, it's only storage. So it's a life safety concern for the Fire Marshal's Office we're trying to address. We've got an apartment complex in town that we were notified is no longer having active alarm monitoring, so we're trying to work with that group and another apartment in which the enunciator outer panel was damaged. You know, it's probably one thing worth noting right now while you see a bit of a recurring theme on some of these properties is we all know the national shortage right now taking place with parts and so forth, and we're finding that alarm panel parts for fire alarm systems are very hard to come by. We've had a number of occurrences in the last month alone where we've had alarm systems go down and the landlords are indicating trouble trying to secure new products, new parts for alarm systems. So we're having to work pretty hard to make sure that these systems stay up and online and that they're enforced. A lot of people right now will be willing to just give that part of it up, and in many cases that's not an option. So when we find out about it, we do end up having to provide some enforcement. Regarding training, over the last month, mattress streams, fire prevention, because it was Fire Prevention Month, and we've been meeting with our EMS physicians to get updated on some changes coming up in the EMS treatment and some stats coming out of our region in terms of how we can improve. I have a few items for executive session, and that's what I have for Chief's report.
Any comments of the from the commission regarding the chief's report?
Yeah, I just want to touch base on budgets after watching the Board of Finance meeting. We talked about last time the water, the increase in the water costs, and do you have an update on that? Because Ed didn't last.
Yeah, so we looked into it. It looks like we're being billed every 6 months for a charge that I'm currently disputing with the water company. I think it should be getting applied elsewhere or not applied at all. So that's where that's coming from. Again, it's worth noting that those bills never cross our desk. It gets charged right from finance to the budgets. So it was caught along with you, and we're trying to rectify it. So more to come on that, hopefully. I'm not sure there'll be a budget correction or not, but moving forward, it should get taken care of.
Okay. And then the other thing that was discussed again was the contractual obligations, and then how much money was went from FEMA towards that line item. Can we talk a little bit about that?
Sure.
Contractual replacement.
Mm-hmm.
Under what conditions does that get used, that money? I know when people are out sick and you have to replace.
The contractual replacement staffing
Yeah.
line. So it's any time that any one of the, right now we have 2 shifts of 8 and 2 shifts of 10. So it's any time those shifts have a vacancy due to injury leave, sick leave, vacation leave, personal leave. There's some training in there, but not a ton. And the majority of it is going to be vacation leave and sick leave.
Okay. So then when is the overtime used?
The overtime is only used for things like storms and other
where you
weather-related
need more
emergencies.
people than what you would typically anticipate.
Correct. Anything above and beyond the 8 or the 10-man staffing,
Okay.
10-person staffing.
A lot of the conversation at the Board of Finance meeting seems to be that as we add more staff, that contractual, which replacement staffing line will go up, and that's problematic. But it really is kind of an overtime thing, and it would seem that as we're moving into budget season and looking forward, if you work in the business world, you analyze how much money you have to spend on replacing staff and through overtime versus the cost of adding new staff, because that actually is a way to manage overtime. So I think that having that conversation more and more with the Board of Finance, especially from commission members. I was planning on going to that meeting the other night, but I had a flat tire, so I ended up not being able to make it. But I just think that to me, it seems it's almost backward thinking that if you add staff, you're going to be adding more overtime when actually you're not going to have to replace them with current staff that then need to be paid at an overtime rate.
Jen, I was disappointed. I watched the Board of Finance meeting, and I was very disappointed to hear the comments from Commissioner Barrett. I created a response, and I'm going to forward this to Chairman Monaco. And I'm going to read this. I'll send a copy out to each of you as well. But I think it was poorly done. I don't think she understood completely a lot of the research that you've done in the past and the commitment that you made to compare. She made a comparison between Commissioner Barrett made a comparison between the police department and the fire department, and I just think she was ill-informed and she has the wrong numbers. And I think what you just articulated is 100% correct. We bring more persons on board. We're not adding. We're actually going to subtract. So, and I'll wait until correspondence to read this letter in response to her comments. But I wish that everyone would do what you did and do. You do the research, you understand the numbers rather than shooting from the hip and looking at things that are incorrect and then coming on public TV and frightening folks. To say that the town of North Haven can't afford our fire department as it is unconscionable, and it's fearful, and our seniors are concerned about that, and I'm concerned about it, and I hope you are as well. I was really disappointed to hear a Board of Finance member speak in that way, and actually double down when our first selectman asked her if that in fact is what she meant, and she said yes. And I know this is part of probably from last commission meeting when our third select woman was here and asked the chief if our intentions as a commission is to bring additional firefighters on board in this upcoming budget, and the chief answered yes. Our intention is to ask for 2 additional firefighters in order to complete the original plan to bring our department up to where it needs to be to deliver the quality customer service to our residents and our business owners and visitors of our town. And our third select woman was surprised that the chief answered in such a way. And certainly when we present our budget at the budget workshop, all of this is articulated very clearly as to why we're doing what we're doing and what the purpose is. And I think if Commissioner Barrett looked at previous workshops, she would have had a clear understanding as to why there's a difference between the contractual line items and the overtime, and why the chief and the Board of Finance saw fit to separate those two. And you have a clear understanding of that, and you did the research on it, and I commend you for that, and I thank you for that. But, I'm disappointed that a Board of Finance member didn't take the time to study this. So I'll wait until later on to read this correspondence.
Just a couple of other points on this. When you look at and comparing the police department to the fire department, and that's not to pit one department against another.
Absolutely not.
But the comparison has been made quite frequently about the fact that the police department is able to manage their overtime costs better. And I think you have to look at what their current budget. I mean, they have more than $1 million larger of a budget than this department. And when you're looking at staffing, it's again, they have $1 million more that they're putting out in staffing, and their staffing numbers are significantly higher. So it almost sort of shows you that if you have enough staff to meet the needs of the department, you're going to be able to manage your overtime. Anytime you're leaving a department at the base minimum to be able to manage, what they need to manage, then you are going to have to replace those staff. And then the other piece of it goes to creating situations where you're calling people in and they're not getting the time to rest, and then you get injury, and those things also then relate, can create problems where you have people out on disability or injury, and that increases that cost. So it's more complicated than just looking at the percent used during the, when you look at the budget. So I just think those things are really important to be able to point out and to provide information about, because it's definitely not been, it's been sort of a conversation around, if you increase the staff, you're going to increase the overtime. I think you're actually probably going to do the opposite. So,
well, look, I think you're exactly right, and again, in our previous workshops, the chief went into great detail to articulate just that. And when you're comparing, Commissioner Barrett compared the police department to the fire department, they're two different models.
right. And they're getting a lot more money and a lot
not
more
only
staff.
not only are they getting more money, the chief made it clear throughout the years that the fire department can't stack calls.
Right.
So if someone dials 911, as they are now, and the dispatch is calling for.
Engine 9 Tower 1, respond 95 Fitch Street, 95 Fitch Street, ASA, smoke detector.
So as the fire department is being called out, we must respond.
Right.
Whereas the police department has an opportunity to stack calls. So if a car is stolen, the car is gone, a police officer doesn't have to immediately respond. They can respond in an hour or two or
Right.
three, or whatever it happens to be. I know our department does a great job, our police department, in responding, but it's not like they need to do that. And not only that, but they don't necessarily have to replace persons who are out sick.
Right.
Whereas on a 10-person squad a shift that we have, if we have one or two persons who are out, we need to replace those
Right.
persons. And to your point, if we had additional staff, we could run down
Right.
and still have a sufficient number. So you understand this completely, and I'm so proud of that. And this has been articulated to the Board of Finance numerous times. And that's why I was so disappointed to hear that, at the last commission meeting. We'll get into that further. And this isn't a slam on the police department. They do a marvelous job. The chief does a great job overseeing the department. Larry Lazaroff as the chairman, and that commission does a marvelous job. But when you look at, decades of support or lack of, the police department has been supported and the fire department has not been.
Right, right.
In most recent years, yes, we have, gotten new apparatus, we've hired some more people, but we're playing catch up
Right.
from generations ago. here in our department, when the call volume continues to rise, we talked about just this month alone, 3,903 calls. I mean, how do you service that?
Right.
So, and as economic development continues to grow, the need for public safety needs to grow in proportion. Now, we have delivered that message to the Board of Finance, and we've said it here in this meeting numerous times. And you've been a clear messenger of that at other meetings. And again, I thank you for that. And I'm hopeful that none of us as commissioners are supportive of that notion that the residents of this town cannot afford our fire department as it is and as it will grow. And I hope that's, we're all in agreement that that is an untrue statement. I think residents, if you ask any one of those 3,903 calls that we went on this month alone, do they support the fire department? I'm sure it would be a resounding yes.
Right.
So, I mean, I can't understand how anybody that would say something like that. I mean, I think it's unconscionable. Anyway, enough of that. Any other comments regarding the chief's report? Hearing none, I'll ask for a motion to accept. All in favor? So moved. Correspondence.
I believe there was one provided
Mayor Jen?
to each.
I think you have a communication.
This is to Chairman Matt Little. I want to let you know that on Saturday morning, October 2nd at 7 a.m., I experienced a medical condition at Baylicious in North Haven while waiting in line. There were 3 EMTs, 1 female and 2 males, standing right behind me at the time. These NELCON personnel came to my assistance and handled my medical condition with professionalism, courtesy, and medical knowledge. I do believe, after the way these people handled my situation, the town of North Haven is in good hands with NELCON ambulance service. Unfortunately, I never obtained their names. Sincerely, Richard M. Astorino, retired North Haven Police Department.
Wonderful. Lovely.
I have a personal note that on Sunday, I was in need of help for my son at 7 State Street, and also the fire department responded very quickly, and NELCON ambulance, they're also very happy with their service.
We've received many positive comments and compliments regarding NELCON's, since the transition. I personally see them and witness them coming to the landing quite frequently, and they do a marvelous job. Sometimes they're there even prior to our rescue getting there because they're stationed in such positions. So we're very fortunate to have them, and certainly compliments to NELCON and the staff that they have there. As I mentioned before, I have created a communication that was forwarded to Commissioner Monaco in response to Commissioner Barrett's comments at the most recent Board of Finance Committee meeting, and please indulge me as I read this. This letter is intended to address the erroneous and accurate comments made by Board of Finance member Nancy Barrett. During the regular Board of Finance meeting on October 20th, 2021, Ms. Barrett expressed concerns over the fire department contractual replacement staffing budget line, which exceeds projections during the fiscal year 2021 budget. Ms. Barrett provided 4 points as to why she personally felt the budget line had exceeded projections. To clarify, the addition of 4 additional officers' positions were needed in order to comply with OSHA regulations and not exceed an acceptable span of control. Secondly, the said officers don't receive any more vacation time any other vacation time than other staff whom are not officers. Third, regardless of which station staff are assigned to, there is a minimum of 10 personnel assigned to all 4 shifts in order to effectively operate 2 engines, 1 rescue, and 1 ladder. Comparing the fire department to the police department is once again unfair and unfounded, completely inappropriate. Over the last 45 years, the number of police department personnel has continued to increase, and the staffing model was never based on volunteer support to supplement staffing requirements. During that same period of time, the fire department has only recently increased career staff while seeking a 76% decrease, 115 personnel less, in the number of volunteer staff. To position that differently, the fire department at one time could depend on 24 to 36 personnel at any given time, 24/7, while today that number is more like 3 or 5 personnel with sporadic accountability. The fire department has no depth in personnel. Every member of a 10-person shift that is out of work for any reason needs to be replaced in order to keep the aforementioned apparatus in service and able to respond to an ever-increasing number of incidences. The difference in overall staffing is why there is such a large discrepancy in how each department manages overtime. And I think that's exactly what Jen is speaking about. All through the 1980s and 1990s and nearly all of the 2000s, there were no increases in the fire department staffing. I repeat, none. Since 1980, 1990s, and 2000s. Today, those decisions are catching up with us as a town. The fire department remains understaffed to meet the increasing call volume due to economic growth and overall decline of volunteers we relied on so heavily as a town for over 100 years. The chief, who has not yet been given the opportunity to do so, intends to request additional staffing to minimize the impact of contractual replacement staffing line. Some elected officials can't even wait for him to explain that and would prefer to prematurely cast their opinions. Towns all around us face with the same decline in volunteers, have added additional firefighters over the last 4 years, and have plans to continue to do so. Why should North Haven be any different? As the chief has explained in the past, the contractual replacement staffing line is a direct correlation to the number of overall contracted days off permitted by the labor contract. A projection of anticipated replacement costs for injury leave, long-term illness, and similar leave is built into the said line. There will be times that such projections are not predictable, as was the case of 2020, the fiscal year 2021. COVID had a significant impact on our line. The addition to our increase in overall sick leave, likely to staff having to care for their families, like every other person during the pandemic. Additionally, 2 long-term injuries of personnel for 6 months, approximately $55,000 in expenses, and 10 months, approximately $92,000 in expenses, as well as a retirement mid-fiscal year, approximately $37,000 in expenses, contributed to the exceeding the contractual replacement staffing projections. Compensation at 66% of the base salary for employees through workers' compensation is not factored into the fire department budget. And again, another line and an issue that Jen has been harping on that we continue to get dinged on. So compensation at 66% of the basic salary of employees through workers' compensation is not factored into the fire department budget. It is worth noting that using the calculations in terms of anticipated expenses related to the budget line for the fiscal year 2018-2019 and 2019-2020, 18-19 and 19-20 were both accurate, during which time when the increase in staffing for the Monterey station had already begun. For Nancy Barrett to make the comment, we cannot even afford the fire department we have right now, is disgusting. It's unconscionable. Ms. Barrett has no real understanding of the needs of the fire department, undervalues the importance of public safety, and is callous in her rationale for staffing. Current for the future staffing needs of the fire department cannot be solely determined based upon the financial cost, but rather must be balanced by the risk of to the public, frequency of all types of incidences, and common sense. As a town, we provide and expect the best of the best from the Public Works Department, schools, police department, and others. Yet Ms. Barrett feels the fire department should operate on the bare bones and make it work. That's rather hard to do when there is a history of overall personnel decline coupled with an ever-increasing workload. As a fire commission, we urge Ms. Barrett to immediately stop with the fabricated assumptions as is misleading to the public and unfair representation of the needs of our taxpayers. Any insinuation by a member of the Board of Finance that the town cannot afford the fire department needs to stop. The fire department remains the fourth largest expense terms of fire department and the second highest revenue generator department only in recent years, but yet still receives ongoing relentless criticism by those who have failed to educate themselves and or appreciate public safety within the town of North Haven. Ladies and gentlemen, this communication has been forwarded to Chairman Monaco from me to him, indicating my complete disgust, and hopefully this message is clear and no longer will a Board of Finance member be ill-prepared and uncertain as to what the fire department needs are and what the budget consists of and what our personnel actually is. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to read this. Any other correspondence? Hearing none, we'll move on to the discussion of unfinished business for the fire department.
We got a few things on your agenda. The training facility on Washington Avenue is nearly complete. We're just waiting on some parts to finish the articulating roof prop that's affixed to the front of the building. That's what's actually tying it up right now. There's some hardware needed to make that roof prop go different angles to simulate different types of roofs. As soon as that's done, otherwise the tower should be turned over to us and ready to go. Regarding the apparatus, Truck 2 remains out of service. We're working through some issues with that, and hopefully more to come as we learn more. Regarding the 2 engines we have ordered from Sutphin, I wanted to provide a correspondence to the commission that I received as recently, I believe as yesterday. There's no date on it, but I'm pretty sure I got it yesterday or the day before by email from Sutphin. Just and again, it's the theme here going on regarding parts. Parts right now in the fire industry and fire apparatus business are becoming harder and harder to come by, and with that, they're basically letting us know that although we expect 2 engines in 18 months' time from the time in which they were ordered, which was roughly July, it looks like it may be even longer than that. So I just want to keep the commission up to speed in terms of where we are with the timeline. Regarding new recruit testing and ladder applications remain open through the end of November, and we're again part of a state consortium list along with Brantford, East Hartford, and West Haven to try to recruit new paramedics to the fire service, and that application closes on November 15th. Again, that's a combination of 4 towns that are trying to recruit right now and trying to look for paramedics. And that's all I have for unfinished business.
Chief, one question of the November 15th close for the testing. What about the lateral applications? Is that at the same time frame or
A little bit later in November.
okay?
Yeah.
Two quick questions. The rescue, I know last time you said things were going smooth with him. Is that still the case?
Still the case, yeah.
And
No,
what about
no issues.
What about the administrative?
Still mechanically no issues at all.
Okay. And I did look into, remember last time we were talking about possibilities of, I was using the word grant, but it's waivers. It has to do with the municipal projects. And I did call someone at OPM, and it sounded like there's a possibility that some of the waivers could be used for, they specifically mentioned, engines and ladder trucks and things like that, but I don't know whether administrative vehicles could fit into that, because it has to do with whether it's, whether that falls in their definition, but I'm gonna do a little more research into it. They did mention the municipal project waivers the other night, and said, at the Board of Finance, said that they were very strict, that it had to do with roads and bridges and public works, but the person I talked to at OPM, who I think has to do with that department, didn't make it sound like that, so I want to do a little more research, because I think as much as we can hand the Board of Finance, this is the way we can pay for it, the better off we are.
That would be great news if they expanded that list.
Yeah, I just have to do a little more
Yeah.
digging to find out if that's true.
And keep in mind, these vehicles that we're talking about, are equipped with significant equipment, boards and rescue equipment and defibrillators and so on and so forth. So it's strictly not a vehicle that you're going to be, tooling around in.
Right,
If you will.
But it's good to know for future, I know we're getting 2 engines, and that seems to be, helping us to get to where you think we should be, but you definitely, for the larger apparatus, he definitely made it sound like you could use a waiver to ask for that, so that's just something to be aware of.
Yeah, something to investigate.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you for doing that. Any other questions of the chief regarding unfinished business? We'll move on to new business.
New business, looking for the commission to pass a motion for Juan Garcia to join Mono East Company 2 as a volunteer.
Mary Jane, would you be kind enough to make that motion?
Make a motion to add volunteer firefighter Juan Garcia to company 2.
Is that effective immediately, chief?
Yes.
Any question on the motion? Do I hear a second to the motion?
Second.
Any question on the motion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? So moved. The good of the fire department.
Go to the department, on some good news. So I received an email on September 7th, and after learning more about it, decided to include it in this commission meeting. I wanted the union to have some time to kind of collect their thoughts. So the fire union has always run a bicycle helmet safety day, and they've been doing it for in excess of 30 years. I could be wrong with this, but I believe it was started by firefighter Alan Riggs, who's since retired, and it's been carried on most recently by Lieutenant Jason Cusack, and they continue to do a fine job providing bicycle helmets. So what this is the correspondence that I received from the United Nations General Assembly, in which they've been acknowledged for providing bicycle helmets to our youth in North Haven for as many years as they have. So not too often you see something like this come across your email. You initially think it's a spam or something, and it truly turned out to be legitimate. And we've had conversations with the individual from the UN since. The union's going to do some more moving forward to continue to carry the momentum that they've had, and they're also going to work with the UN on a particular date when they'll be recognized along with other agencies throughout the world. So congrats to them. Really something else. And if you haven't, as a commission member, been to the fire headquarters on the Saturdays in May that they provide bicycle helmets to all the kids in North Haven, all the 3rd graders, I encourage you to stop by and check it out. They've been doing it for a long time, and they're getting the recognition they well deserve.
Absolutely, and certainly on behalf of our commission, I want to congratulate the union and all the membership. This is a copy of the article that appeared in the Citizen, and congratulating the fire union. It was distributed 13 awards around the world, and our North Haven Fire Union was one of them. I mean, it's a tremendous accomplishment, and the chief is correct. I think if anyone has attended one of those fittings where our firefighters actually have persons that come in and they fit the 3rd graders with the bicycle helmet. Is it 1st grade or 3rd grade? 1st grade. 1st graders. And then they take a picture in front of an apparatus with the firefighters, and the families and children are always excited about it, and they come away with a beautiful helmet that's going to keep them safe as they're riding their bicycles. So it's a real joy. And again, congratulations to the fire union on a job well done. It makes our town stand out as it normally does. Public comments. I don't see anyone here for public comments.
I'm
Oh,
sorry,
yeah,
just
Jen.
one more quick
Yeah, go ahead.
thought. And I had mentioned this to Chief earlier, but back in, it was 2007, there was a fire operations that was done they invited Board of Finance members. I think Mike Frieda participated in it when he was on the Board of Selectmen. And I know Pat Brown was on the Board of Finance and she participated. And the feedback I had heard from them was what a great educational experience it is for how hard the work is of the fire department and what they do. And I was thinking that if we might want to start considering maybe doing a little bit more of that to try to help people who are making decisions about where the money goes and how what resources the fire department needs, that it would be very helpful for them to maybe go through that. And the commissioners, I think commissioners did it as well. So I don't know if that's something we can explore, but I think it might be a good idea.
At that particular time, we brought in it was a smoke chamber. Do you recall that, Chief?
Yeah, so it was a live burn trailer. The union is actually the ones that put that together and administered it. So I can have some conversations with them and see if it's something that they're willing to do. In the event that they're not able to accommodate our request, I'll try to provide you with some dates that they do on a larger scale through the state. It's not as personable and not as effective maybe with the ability to ask some more local questions, but it's still a good opportunity. So I'll try to get an answer for you by next month if it's something that we can plan for the spring.
Okay.
That was quite an exercise, and a number of persons went through that and came out and going through the smoke and putting on the equipment, and it was quite a learning experience.
Yes, yeah.
No question about it.
I've gotten several pictures of
It,
people going through that.
for me, it was reminiscent of being back in the Navy, going through the smokehouse or even the gas house, and coming out. And Vin, I'm sure you could speak to this. And it's not a pleasant experience. So you have a deep appreciation for what firefighters go through. No question about it. Any other comments? Public comments? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to move into executive session. Do I hear a second? Second. All in favor? So moved. I'd like to reconvene the Tuesday, October 26, 2021 North Haven Fire Commission meeting. I'd like to announce that the next regularly scheduled commission meeting will be Tuesday, November 23rd, 2021 at 6 p.m. here at Montawees Company 2 Community Center at 282 Quinnipiac Avenue. Is there any further business coming before this commission? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Do I hear a second? Second. Any question on the motion? All in favor? Aye. This meeting's adjourned. Thank you very much.
The preceding program is brought to you in part through a grant from the town of North Haven. Watch town meetings or other videos on demand at nhtv.com.